Well, I know Rebecca is right here with a microphone, so please join the discussion. Who has some thoughts?
Well, Holly, do you want to just clarify? Because I think what we're trying to do is figure out what are next steps so that I can then summarize what you tell me.
She may have some ideas of her own, but we'd love to weave all this together. Whether it's about something you've heard today, something new. Terrific. And just for everybody's sake, if the speakers could please identify themselves.
Yes, I'm Dave Gustafson with the PBGC, and I just learned today that as a member of the staff that I'm personally responsible for our deficit, so I figured I better ask a good question. Richard started to get to my question, but it's one of these connecting types of things. Josh mentioned in his presentation that we need less prescription and more discretion in laws and regulations. Mark kind of suggested that we needed some more evidence-based assessment of what works and what doesn't. What if you were given the opportunity to have a 3-year pilot project where you could suspend or soften any of the regulations or laws that are now impediments to these proposals? Which 2 or 3 would you choose? Would it be the anti-cutback rules and non-discrimination rules, the funding rules, parts of the fiduciary rules, to make these proposals more saleable?
Oh, that's a good one. Who wants to take that on?
I actually, I don't know if people know Hans Kuttner who's at the Hudson Institute, but he and I, coincidentally, are presenting a paper next month called Evidence-Based Retirement Policy. And in the paper, we argue what we really need is a process to create exemptions rather than go by intuition about what might work. And you know, so in some ways, I think if you have a system where people can get exemptions, people who want to sell particular approaches to retirement or employers who want to do something. I mean, automatic enrollment in some sense was a demonstration project. Treasury could have probably put a stop to it, or they could have made it happen, which is what they did, and they had people studying it and showed how well it worked. And so at least this paper argues that that we really should give the 3 agencies some ability to waive requirements in controlled environments that would be studied.
Any yes? Oh, Judy?
I think Dave's question is the third one, and thank you for raising it. I don't know if 3 years would be enough, because people would have to think about what they want to design and how to sell it, and then it would take a little while before the abuses emerge, and then you see, you know, kind of what you'd have to crack down on. 2 that come to my mind immediately are this is really a DB issue, but the ERISA accrual rules, which get in the way of some creative benefit designs and perhaps some of the partial retirement issue. And related to that is the 401A7, excuse me, the 401A9, the distribution rules, which may be getting in the way of some things like Retirement Plus. I think it would be worth looking at those and not running, you wouldn't run too much risk, I think, of really hurting people. I mean, I wouldn't choose anti-cutback as the first one to try to waive. I think you could be more safe in something like that.
Others? John?
Continuing this vein, really, it seems like we talked earlier about the notion of using the states as laboratories, and Hank Kim's proposal really sort of puts that out. But one of the obstacles to doing that is that ERISA preempts the states from passing laws or regulations for private sector retirement. I wonder if one of the ways in which we could take this idea would be to sort of make some areas around which the states could experiment and get a waiver from ERISA preemption. I don't think we could do it across the board, but there certainly are areas, and I well recognize that ERISA was set up really to protect workers from the vagaries of state law and common law, but I think perhaps that might be one way that we could advance this notion of testing out different ideas and seeing what works. Thank you.
Anybody want to respond to that, or? Here, we've got Mark Ugertz, then we have another question back there.
On the state waiver of preemption, I mean, one of the gold standards of ERISA was the idea that it promoted national uniformity particularly for companies that were offering benefits on a nationally uniform basis, which is pretty much everybody today. So I think that it raises more problems. As far as the laboratories of experimentation, I think most of the experimentation in plans has really come from companies themselves. And the problem is that government regulation, as Judy pointed out, often stands in the way of that experimentation. You have to jump through an awful lot of hoops to try something new, and that's a major disincentive for a lot of companies. So my initial reaction to that is that, no, we don't like waivers of ERISA preemption, and we never have, and I don't think we ever will.
Can I just add just a quick footnote here? And it's probably a different conference, but I've been sorely disappointed in the debates over state pension reform because they've been very narrowly focused, for the most part, on just getting them up to adequate funding. And they'll do things like increase employee contributions and stuff like that, which may or may not be appropriate, but it doesn't deal with all the design issues about how efficient they are, the incentives they have. A state plan itself might actually be a good laboratory.
There was a... We got a comment and question?
I don't have a question, but more of a comment. My name is Janice Winston, and I'm more of a pension activist, so I'm here listening to your plans, and I'm very encouraged by them. But I just had two things. I'd heard the term used, retirement poverty, and I think we owe it to our younger generation to make sure that we take care of the retirement poverty issue, because we're having older people vying for the same jobs as younger people because they are in retirement poverty. And I think this would be something that would stimulate the economy more. We'd have more people at home, older people like me, and younger people out in the job force, getting their training and being able to get further in their lives. The other thing was, I always talk to people about retiring at age 62 as opposed to taking a full retirement. And they say, I want to take it before I die. So I don't know if there's some kind of way to change that mindset of not taking Social Security at age 62 as opposed to going out to age 65 with that mindset of I want to take it before I die.
You'd be perfect to discuss that issue?
Yeah, I can almost just say, yes, please. I think really fundamentally, somebody in one of the very early panels said, gee, look at what's happened all these years, all the things that have been tried, and still we have the same amount of retirement income being generated, maybe even less. And I'm wondering whether we're kind of beating our head against a wall here by trying to come up with more regulations, more detail, more specific little ideas about how to make things different that might appeal to a few people inside the Beltway, where the people that are really deciding whether or not they want to buy an annuity, whether they want to take Social Security at 62 versus wait to a higher age, whether they want to use some of their tangible assets now, their financial assets, to be able to put off Social Security to buy a bigger annuity, that's not being decided inside the Beltway. That's being decided by, 300 million people all around the country. And is there a way that we can better get the message out to them to think about the idea of, yeah, I mean, people are taking the money as soon as they can because they're afraid they'll get run over by a bus or they'll die early, they'll die tomorrow, so they want to keep their hands on the money right now and not give it up. And let's face it, if you take what you've got in a 401k, which is an asset, and you spend that in the next 2 or 3 years in order to get a bigger Social Security benefit, that's something we all applaud, but that's giving up an asset to buy a lifetime annuity, which is not what people want. So how can we get them to think in terms of greater valuing that lifetime stream of income than they are doing now? If we don't do that, then all the regulations in the world, I don't think are going to do any good.
Pam?
I'm just struck by the fact that we never once today mentioned our alternative pension system, which is the 403B model. And I think many of us would like the 401k system to morph into more of a system that looks like that. So I'm just urging that we take a look at some of the virtues and perhaps some of the drawbacks of that system as well.
Mm-hmm. Did I see someone over here? Yeah.
Hi, Nancy Altman. I chair the Pension Rights Center, and I co-direct an organization called Social Security Works. So I bridge both worlds. And consistent with Jean talking about breaking down, not just talking about DBs and DCs, there tend to be conversations just about Social Security, just about private pensions. And we've here talked mainly about private pensions, but also Social Security. A lot of good ideas and a lot of food for thought. My comment really, and it's a kind of next step, is to try to bridge these two worlds. I think everyone in this room understands that to really look at this as problem solving, we have to both expand, not only expand the employer-provided pensions, but recognize that they're complementary with Social Security, and we should be expanding that too. If we cut Social Security and expand in the ways we've talked about, our retirement income security is going to go down. So I guess it would be good to have voices on both sides arguing to both expand employer-provided pensions in the way we've talked about and expand basic Social Security benefits.
Other thoughts? I don't know, Karen, does this give you what you need to work with?
Well, I think the first next step is I want to find out.
Oh, look at that. Can anyone here top Norman's last Brangelina joke? No, I'm only kidding. Okay, well, we've heard a lot of ideas here. States as laboratories, but there's some issues, preemption issues, as Mark has raised, but there's ways that, Mark Every has come up with a lot of ideas in the past that we didn't deal with the preemption issues, so there's those issues, and I think we have to discuss those. There's demonstration projects. On that note, I just wanted to say that we did explore, as part of the conversation on coverage, putting together a demonstration project on POP, which is what Judy put forth today, and we do think that that's a good idea. I would just say that we don't want to do any demonstration project that's only 3 or 4 years, because once you set up a plan, then people are starting to accumulate money in that plan. What happens if then it's only 3 or 4 years? So that was one of the things we hit up against. And then the question is, could it be done just through regulation, or does it need legislation? But all these things can be explored. I think that what we really need to do, and can I just have a show of hands? I know this is always a dangerous thing, but did people find this useful today? Who found it useful and would like to continue? Okay, that's a pretty good show of hands. And that was my sense, just from watching this today, that everybody was really engaged, both the panelists, the respondents, and also the audience on this. So what I would suggest is that we come up with some sort of task force, and I'm not quite sure how it's going to work yet. I'm going to have to get back with my my great partnering organizations here, and start to talk about how we can engage some of these issues and work to develop proposals. I'm not quite sure how it's going to happen yet, but I think that we will have some sort of listserv where we'll keep you guys involved, and we'll try to come up with some sort of task force, or maybe more than one task force, to start to explore these ideas. Does that make sense, Richard? And I also want to say again that I really loved working with these guys. So that was really important, because it was really fun. That's what you said at one of the COC things. I love you guys. So Richard, do you want to add anything to that?
No.
Holly, Jean?
Just my thanks to my co-conspirators here, as well as all of you in the audience. We've also learned a great deal as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much for coming today.